Thank you very much, Chair, colleagues. Thank you for the opportunity to present today. Before I begin, I would like to personally thank the staff at my ministry and all those who have engaged with us over the past several months during these difficult days. If pressure makes diamonds, then my ministry and our sectors are full of gems. I'll take a few moments to speak broadly about the impacts of COVID-19 on our sectors and then speak more specifically about the tourism, hospitality, and food service sectors. Given we will be dealing with the sector analysis on culture, heritage, and sport later, I'll reserve a more detailed accounting for you on them later. Because these are not normal times, I will not be sugarcoating what we're dealing with. While COVID-19 has hit everybody hard, my ministry oversees sectors that have been shattered. Let me begin with a benchmark. Prior to COVID-19, the ministry's partners delivered a spectacular double bottom line, an economic bottom line and a social one. The economic bottom line included $75 billion in economic activity and employed hundreds of thousands of people in every single community across our province. To put this into perspective, $75 billion is larger than the forestry, mining, and agricultural sectors put together and larger than the GDP of Manitoba. We're leading in growth at that time and the creativity at that time prior to COVID-19. We also witnessed the social bottom line in heritage sectors that connected us to our storied past. We witnessed it in thriving arts communities that enriched our quality of life. We witnessed them in organized sport, whether as fans of a professional sports team that brought us together or in amateur sports. Whether you're talking about a big Hollywood film or a local community theater, the people who work in and volunteer in our cultural, heritage, arts, sports industries are the people who have always made Ontario a better place to live, to work, and to visit. Today, these people are hurting. I'm determined to do everything I can to get them back on their feet. Going into this crisis, let me tell you where we stood. Overall, the ministry budget is $1.6 billion, up $200 million from last year. It supports and has oversight over 18 agencies, including the Toronto and Ottawa Convention Centres, the Art Gallery of Ontario, the Royal Ontario Museum, the Science Centre in Toronto and in the North, the McMichael Gallery, the Royal Botanical Gardens, Ontario Place, Library South, Library North, two park commissions, one on the St. Lawrence, the other in Niagara, and our granting agencies, Destination Ontario, who has joined me today, Ontario Creates, the Ontario Arts Council, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and the Ontario Heritage Trust. We fund 250 festivals a year, 176 heritage organizations, 376 public libraries, 166 community museums, and 12 heritage organizations. We also include support for the Ontario Cultural Attractions Fund, the new Tourism Recovery and Development Fund, the Ontario Music Investment Fund, and a multitude of sport organizations, including 68 provincial sport organizations, 117 different after-school programs, Indigenous sport and wellness, and the Special Olympics. This ministry also runs the Honours and Awards Secretariat, which includes the Volunteer Service Awards, the prestigious Ontario Order of Ontario, many other recognitions, and we are building the Afghanistan War Memorial. As you can see, the ministry supports the pride of people, the pride of place in Ontario, while at the same time growing the economy. This dual mandate is what guides our work and helps us measure our success. This double bottom line should be a source of pride for every MPP, but it is a bottom line that is fragile right now. Due to COVID-19, bars and restaurants find themselves shuttered for everything but takeout and delivery. Our libraries are restricted to curbside pickup. Sports, from our Timbits hockey to our Toronto Raptors, find themselves on the sidelines. Our airlines are grounded. Attractions, from walking tours to Wonderland, are closed. Musicians and theatre employees who depend on live performances have lost their income. And all of the small businesses and suppliers who directly and indirectly depend on these industries to stay open are also on the ropes. The very people who drive our economy and our visitor rates have been driven out of their livelihoods by COVID-19. Our government stands by the decision to put in place restrictions so that we could save lives. And we're prepared to act immediately to reopen even more of the economy based on the advice of medical experts who are carefully assessing the risks. but none of us should be naive to the fact that there will be lasting damage, that many customers are rethinking their old habits, that restaurant and music venues will not be filled anytime soon, and that with international travel restricted, we cannot expect a return to previous levels of foreign or domestic tourism anytime soon. Consider a Music Canada study that found, and I quote, 43% of Canadians said it would take 6 months or more before they would feel comfortable going to a music festival or a concert in a large venue. Another quarter said that they may never feel comfortable going to a type of this event again. This is the challenge that keeps me up at night, but it is also what gets me up in the morning, because we have a real opportunity together in recovery and rebuilding. But it's going to take a lot of hard work, a lot of smart ideas, because the urgency is real. The ministry deals with the ultimate small business sector, who will need help with liquidity, with regulatory changes, with commercial rent relaxation. With COVID-19, we are tracking $20 billion at least in economic losses within these sectors. According to C.D. Howe Institute, 4 of the 7 hardest hit sectors were aligned with this ministry. They are transportation and sightseeing tours, air transportation, accommodations and food services, and arts, recreation, and entertainment. Consider this figure alone. In the month of March, this province lost 400,000 jobs, and we estimate 350,000 of them came from our tourism and hospitality sectors and our cultural industries. We were hit first, we were hit hardest, and it's going to take the longest for our sectors to recover. Make no mistake, we are the canary in the coal mine of COVID-19 in what I refer to as a triple threat: the public health crisis, the economic crisis that followed, and the social crisis. A social crisis that will impact our recovery due to the reality of social distancing, the inability to mass gather, and the likelihood of fear and stigma of a social return to dining in, attending a festival, or watching your favorite hockey team to the near and medium term. This triple threat was both my worst nightmare and my focal point in early January as I first began to turn the ministry's attention to COVID-19 as it ravaged countries a world away. And I'm pleased that my Deputy Minister, Nancy Matthews, is here. That work began with her and I. Some examples of how this triple threat has impacted tourism and hospitality include hotel occupancy in April was at 13.8%, down from 62.5% a year earlier. Restaurant Canada estimates that we have lost 300,000 jobs in that sector just in this province. The Conference Board of Ontario, Canada, reports airlines losing 13 million seats, 11 million just in May and April. Indigenous tourism projects $330 million in losses. Tourism Toronto estimates a $5.6 billion loss, while my hometown of Ottawa projects at least $1 billion in economic loss. And the Tourism Industry Association, who you'll hear from later today, estimates more than 65% of tourism industry operators are right now closed, hopefully only temporarily. And still, the continuing impact of the COVID-19 triple threat has yet to be fully experienced. The pandemic has struck on the cusp of a busy summer season, which accounts for 40% of visitor spending in the province of Ontario. The depth and the length of this crisis far exceeds previous downturns, and current estimates suggest it may be 2024 before tourism spending will recover to 2019 levels. This is devastating, and it will require all hands on deck for us to collectively navigate the storm and turn this ship around. As I'm reminded by Tony, one of my ministry staff from Sault Ste. Marie, on a recent visit to his community, tourism is the one industry that keeps going in every community, regardless of where other industries are. But right now, tourism is the one that needs help. We will need the government, we will need other industries, we will need Ontarians to help this sector out in what will likely be a very long road to recovery by overcoming health challenges, dealing with a new economic reality, and adapting to social restrictions which will inhibit consumer confidence. First, let me explain the concrete steps the ministry has taken in the immediate crisis before discussing our longer-term strategies. Work started in January when I requested the ministry review the SARS recovery model, and at that time I reached out to former culture and tourism ministers from the SARS crisis, David Tabucci and Brian Coburn, seeking their guidance and advice. By mid-February, our ministry began to assemble informal tables with the ministry sectors to understand real-time data from their international partners in what we thought would be a SARS-like crisis. Even with this planning, however, there is no guidebook. As one of my ministerial advisory panelists in the airline industry said, it is like flying a plane as you build it. COVID-19's public health crisis became an economic crisis for this province on March the 12th. Its impact on the social crisis will endure likely long after the disease has been eradicated. That said, we are leaving no stone unturned within the ministry. Since that time, the ministry has held 5 different telephone town halls with over 1,000 stakeholders. We established 14 ministerial advisory committees from everything from airlines and hotels to tourism leaders. I've done town halls virtually with 13 regional tourism areas. I appointed MPP Norm Miller to undertake a consultation throughout the province, and as importantly, I've taken the advice of Niagara Falls Mayor Jim Diodati, who said to me, this is a time to plan, not to panic. So over the past 3 months, these are the specific steps that we have taken. We tripled the Tourism Development Recovery Fund from $500,000 to $1.5 million. Destination Ontario is developing a marketing plan with TIO and our 13 RTOs. Our funding will flow. We will continue to fund more. We supported our food service sector by allowing licensed restaurants to sell and deliver unopened alcohol. We earmarked $341 million to support hotels who are assisting over capacity in our hospitals. The Cultural Attractions Fund, Destination Ontario. Ontario Creates, the Ontario Trillium Foundation, and the Ontario Arts Council continue to flow money despite cancellations. We're continuing investments in Celebrate Ontario and sport hosting. We developed Ontario.live, an online marketplace for tourism and arts. We engaged the Ministry of Labour to build rigorous protocols for a return to work in our sectors, and we continue to work on adapting new and creative opportunities and have flowed over $210 million in the last 2 months to our sectors. We recognize that there is more to do, and we know that we are only in the beginning of what will be a long-time recovery, but there is a path forward. I've instructed the ministry to develop and build out a 5-year plan that will help us recover, rebuild, and then re-emerge as a premier visitor destination in the world. To do this, in the immediate term, we will recover by encouraging support local campaigns like we have seen in Ottawa, Blue Mountain, and other parts of the province. We will also promote digital tourism, as we've seen with Science North and the Tulip Festival, and drive-in and drive-through experiences like we've seen at the Toronto Zoo and our existing 16 drive-ins. This phase will be important as we gradually reopen the economy and begin to address the impacts. Pardon me?
2 minutes.
Oh, thank you. In the medium term, we will focus rebuilding with staycations and domestic travel, encouraging Ontarians and other Canadians to visit our destinations. We are working with Destination Canada to build that strategy. And there's already excitement for 2021. We have the 50th anniversary of Ontario Place, the 50th anniversary of the Junos, the 54th Canada Games, and the 109th Grey Cup coming, and I can't wait to hear from every member of this committee about how we can support your communities in this pivotal year. And finally, in the longer term, as confidence builds and as we reemerge as a top destination for international visitors and our airline capacity reaches pre-COVID-19 levels, we're going to be ready. I've always said we are the world in one province, and we will be ready when Ontario is ready to welcome them back. But colleagues, we do not have a silver bullet to fix this tourism industry overnight.
1 minute.
No one does, I assure you. Together on all sides of the aisle and working with the best minds in their collective fields within these sectors, we will have a gold standard plan to deal with the triple threat of COVID-19. I welcome your questions and concerns, but more importantly, I welcome your ideas on how we can get through this together. Thank you, Chair.